What's up, Savvy Expats? So we are back for round two with one of our favorite guests we ever had on the channel. Corn, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, it's great to see you, Evan. Thanks for having me.
Of course, we had to have you on again. The guests love you, or the audience loved you. But for those who haven't seen part one on our channel with our first interview, can you give another brief introduction about yourself and who you are?
Well, thank you. Well, I was here about 2 months ago. Found you because I'm a freelance journalist, and I saw the Savvy Expat. I'm like, this young man was born in Chicago, born in the U.S., and then he now lives in BGC in the Philippines, like permanently. So, like, I had to do a story on the Savvy Expat. So that's how we met.
Yep.
I am a realtor in Las Vegas. So yeah,
Nice.
that's basically me.
Yep. And so I actually really enjoyed our time with the interview we had the first time that we did this. And you talked about how you're doing journalism, realty, and then you even are pursuing your, what is it called? You're doing realty in the Philippines as well, right?
Yes. I am a marketing partner,
Mm-hmm.
accredited marketing partner for Ayala Land. So
Awesome.
I did, when I was here last time, I did tour some properties here, some condos in Ayala Center and also Nuvali.
Right.
So just kind of getting an idea of what real estate here is in the
I love it.
Philippines.
So business in both countries.
Yes, global real estate, which has been kind of a dream of mine since a couple years ago.
And so the first time we met, you were here for how long?
Just 2 weeks.
2
Just
weeks.
about 2
Yeah,
weeks.
so
Yeah.
Just briefly, you were here for a bit, and then you went back to the U.S.
I did.
for a couple of more months, and then now you're back again.
Yeah.
What brings you back to the Philippines?
Well, some family
Okay.
health issues, so, but I'll be here for 2 months. That's the longest time I have been in the Philippines since I was 10 years old, So, I went to the U.S. when I was 5, immigrated there, and then came back here when I was 10 and went to school here for a year. So that was really until now, that was the longest time I've been in the Philippines.
For
So being with my dad, spending time with my dad, spending time with my family, and also kind of getting a real feel now of what it would feel like living here, retiring here, on a permanent basis.
Yeah, so you'd be switching up between the U.S. and the Philippines.
Yeah,
yearly. Got
yeah,
it.
yeah.
And for those of them that don't know, how long were you in Las Vegas for before you came back to the Philippines again recently?
You mean how long did I live in Las Vegas?
Live
or
in
what?
Las Vegas,
So
yeah.
I moved to Las Vegas from California in 2011.
Okay.
Yeah. So the last time I was here last year, and it'd been like almost 10 years since I had been back in the Philippines.
Wow.
So, and that trip hit different as well. That
Yeah,
was
I
like,
can imagine.
yeah, it was a real sense of homecoming. And I've been coming back even before then every couple of years. But that trip last year really hit home. Maybe because I'm older, much older.
Yeah, and a lot has changed since then,
A
right?
lot
Since
has
2011, BGC was barely even built.
Look at BGC.
Right?
It's
Look at it now.
amazing. Yeah.
At first, for everything, right? You recently coming back here, rode the jeepney for the first time.
I did. I rode the jeepney yesterday. First time in almost 40 years.
Wow.
Or over 40 years. I rode by myself. It was really fun. Best 14 pesos ride, right?
Mhm. Oh yeah, for sure. And it's you said it was crowded, it was hot, but
Oh my
good
gosh.
experience, wasn't
It
it?
was.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it. So yes, it was packed. Waited about 30 minutes at the jeepney stop, but it took like 15-20 minutes to market. So it wasn't too bad. No air conditioning. I should have brought a fan. Everybody else had a fan. I'm like, next time.
Next time. And speaking of first, something that we didn't have last time that you now have is a YouTube channel.
Oh my gosh.
So can you let the people know and let us in on like what kind of content you're creating on your YouTube channel and the name and everything?
Well, thank you so much for asking, Evan. I appreciate that. So I've been thinking about doing a YouTube channel. I have my real estate one, but this was really coming back to, again, I guess my midlife crisis or whatever, coming back to rediscovering the Philippines for me, the homecoming. It's called Filipina Unfiltered on YouTube. I started it about less than 2 months ago. And really, honestly, I made like about 100 of my family members subscribe just so I'd have subscribers. It looked like and probably half of them already unsubscribe after watching my boob job video. But it's really about, when I thought of the name, I really thought about like, well, who am I and what do I want to say and why am I doing it? So first and foremost, I am Filipino. I am a Filipina. So that was the first half of the name. And then Unfiltered, I get to a point in my life, I'm well into my 50s, and where first it was about being unfiltered physically. I've never filtered any of my photos, and there's nothing wrong with that when women do that, but to me it felt like I just want to present myself, my true self, what I look like, not just what I look like as well, but who I am.
Right.
The whole speaking your truth and being true to yourself and finding yourself, those kinds of things. So that's when Unfiltered popped into my head. I just wanted it simple, and that's who I am for the duration of my life.
Yeah, so I love that authenticity is one of the pillars of your channel, being authentic of who you are and not putting up a front for social media or anything like that. And so what would you say is like the primary pieces of content that you've been putting out lately, these past 2 months you've been on YouTube?
Well, I think that there is really one of the main themes, and I put out there, is like expressing myself, expressing my views and opinions, the views and opinions of a middle-aged Filipino woman who finally let herself express them. Because growing up here, we, as a Filipino, usually we are very much into people pleasing and putting everybody else's needs first before our own. And there's nothing wrong with that, husband, children, nothing absolutely wrong with that. But when it's finally time for me, and especially women my age, to finally we're like, okay, we don't have this identity anymore. It's not our main identity anymore. A lot of us now who are don't have husbands anymore, and children are gone or grown up and left. And so we find ourselves like, well, what do I want to be? What do I want to do? And who do I want to be now? So a lot of that is the content. Also about growing up Filipino and American in the United States. Being a single mother, career woman, traditional or modern woman, that kind of thing. So those are basically, and they're not cut and dry black and white issues.
Right.
So, and I love exploring all the layers of those topics.
I love it, and you've had on quite a few guests already. From Filipinos to Americans retiring in the Philippines. So yeah, guys, by all means, if you guys want to see more depth, perspective, and insight on the Philippines and Corin's life as well, feel free to check out Filipina Unfiltered. Now,
thank you.
My next question that I was curious about is, since you do have a home property here in Manila, right?
Yeah.
So what's your cost of living like here in the Philippines? Because I'm sure it's different than Vegas.
Oh yeah, for sure. I'm still paying my mortgage in Vegas, still paying all my bills there. But in terms of here, our ancestral home is here. What I'm actually doing in this trip is kind of doing some remodeling. I've already arranged some furniture. My first day, I took a picture, sent it to my sister. It's like, you've already done that? I said, it's your first day. I said, well, been meaning to do it. Had the trees trimmed. So basically doing some remodeling, updating the bathroom. It's an old home. Yeah. And that is my profession, right?
For sure.
So I love doing that. It's what I've been doing here. So as far as my expenses, honestly, this is it. Going out to eat. Yeah. The 14 pesos jeepney ride. Yeah. I had to buy some clothes. I still have to buy some clothes.
Okay.
Didn't, kind of left a little bit last minute in Las Vegas. So buying clothes, things like that.
Okay,
that's
nice.
it. That's my budget here. That's my expenses.
That must be nice though, because in Vegas you're still paying the mortgage, but you come out here, you don't have to pay any rent.
I don't.
The family property is already fully owned, so
yeah.
your only expense is just enjoyment, I suppose.
Pretty much. Pretty
eating out
much.
if you want. So you spent the majority of your time of your life in the U.S., right?
Mhm.
And you've observed what it's like to be around Filipino Americans and local Filipinos.
Mhm.
So I wanted to ask, are there any differences in values that you see with Filipino Americans that grew up in the U.S. versus local Filipinos in the Philippines?
Well, actually, I was just talking about this this morning. You know, my children, I have twin daughters, they were born in the United States.
Mhm.
And as much as I have tried to instill Filipino values, Filipino customs in their upbringing, they're still American.
Mhm.
And they are not going to have that same and in-depth affiliation with Filipino culture as I have.
Mhm.
And then I'm not going to have the same affiliation and the in-depth to our culture as my parents have had, and so
Mhm.
on and so on. So
Right.
it gets diluted as the generations go on. You know, I'm proud of my children that they know a lot of the Filipino culture already,
Mhm.
and that they're interested in it. They know Filipino humor thanks to my dad, making these corny jokes. They love Filipino food. I can let them loose in any Filipino restaurant. They
Right.
will know how to order. That's
Amazing.
all the Tagalog that they may know,
Yeah.
but and yeah. So Filipino Americans in the United States, I think there is they still make a very concerted effort. Like, I'm very involved in a lot of the Filipino American groups and associations, social groups, even political groups in the United States, in
Mhm.
Las Vegas. So, and there's still young people there as well involved,
Mhm.
but mostly it's people my age, their parents and older, okay, who are
Right.
part of these groups.
Mhm.
So the few young people that are involved, it's great. It's great that they have, but they're usually not bilingual. They
Mhm.
usually don't speak the language, but they're comfortable being in there. So, but it's not common.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not common, and there's nobody to blame. Filipino parents are not to blame. Okay, society isn't to blame. It's just where they grew up. They're American. They are American. They go to school. This is how they're influenced.
Mhm.
These are their influences. So, you can't blame anybody for
For
that.
sure. Yeah, absolutely. And the reason I ask is because I've been seeing such a huge influx of not just Filipino Americans moving back to the Philippines, but young Filipino Americans moving back here.
Like
And
you.
Like me. And it surprises me because I recently had a guy I also interviewed named Brandon. He's only 25 and he moved back to the Philippines. And I'm just curious, like, what is it that just now Filipino Americans are no longer so ashamed about being Filipino, but they even want to go back to their homeland that they didn't even grow up in? And I don't know what it necessarily is, if you have any thoughts on that, but yeah, we'd love to hear your insight or
I
perspective.
watched that interview and I
Mhm.
thought that was really cool too. It's like, well, I think, I don't know. It's not that they're ashamed. I think it's like being Filipino is cool now. Very cool.
Mhm.
You have a
Yeah.
Canadian who became Filipino citizen, for goodness sakes.
Yeah.
So there's just been the big spotlight on the Philippines,
Mhm.
and there's an awareness of it. I mean, like BGC,
Mhm.
the beaches. It's just exploded
Mhm.
even more so after post-COVID.
Oh yeah,
Post-COVID,
absolutely.
right?
And that's when I saw that influx because before
Yeah.
that,
Absolutely.
I wouldn't see much Filipino Americans moving back as much to the
Mhm.
Philippines unless they're like retirement age and they're going back to their home province that their parents grew up in.
Yeah.
But I was talking to a group of guys also from Las Vegas, like yourself, and they moved to BGC, and they were saying that they were so shocked when they moved here
Mhm.
because the stereotypical perspective of the Philippines seen by most Americans and Philams is, I guess, either just beaches or poverty. Just
Right.
poverty in Manila. But they don't see places like BGC
Right.
or Makati that's recently been built.
Mhm.
And it's a shocker to a lot of people. Now, my next question is,
Yeah.
what does your social life in the Philippines look like compared to in the U.S.?
The same, non-existent. No, I have learned to entertain myself. I've gotten used to, being solo.
Mhm.
I traveled solo. When I got on the jeepney, my cousin didn't want me to go by myself. So I compromised with her. So she had her housekeeper walked me to the jeepney stop, waited with me there. Then I sent her home. I said, she's like, Ate, I'm not gonna go with you. I said, no, you go ahead. It's market. It's still BGC, and I
Mhm.
speak the language. And that's what she said. She's like, all right, you speak the language, just be careful
Yeah,
of your
you'll be okay.
purse and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I said, I'm a city girl, so I'm okay with that,
Mhm.
um, so yeah, I love it here.
Yeah.
I do love it here. I do love it here. I love the United States. It's given me a lot. But a rediscovering of the Philippines has been amazing.
Hmm. And your channel is all about authenticity, right? And being you. Have you found that there was any like Phil-Ams that refused or they didn't want to go back to the Philippines because they just couldn't relate anymore to their culture?
Oh, absolutely.
Mhm.
Oh, absolutely. They can't make it. They don't want to. They don't want to deal with the heat anymore. They don't
Yeah.
want to deal with the traffic. And I get that. That's okay. It's not for everybody. The
Right.
United States isn't for everybody. The Philippines isn't for everybody.
Mhm.
So um, that's perfectly fine.
Right. For sure. Yeah.
So, but I feel like what you focus on expands.
Yeah.
If you're always thinking about the heat, you're gonna get hotter. If you're always thinking about the traffic, that's what you're gonna focus on.
Mhm.
But if you get past that, it's like there's beautiful beaches, there's
Yeah.
an amazing BGC,
Mhm.
so you're gonna have to get past that. It's truly what you focus on.
Mhm.
You're gonna focus on being all the negativity. You're gonna focus on the unhappiness.
Mhm.
You'll get more of it.
For sure. And you have friends from your Balikbayan Stories Facebook group,
Yes.
which I also recommend you guys join as well. It's a great community. So from that Facebook group, these are people from the U.S., right, coming to the Philippines for how long of a trip?
Yeah, mostly. There's some I've interviewed, and thanks to you, our Balikbayan Stories, for you posted the link to our Facebook group. I think like more than half of them came from the Savvy Expat. So thank you. Um, so, a lot of them actually haven't been to the Philippines. I've interviewed a
Mhm.
couple of them already, and one hadn't been to the Philippines in almost 38 years, almost 40 years.
Mhm.
And the other one, which I just interviewed this week, hadn't been back in 44 years.
Wow.
Lives in Hawaii with her husband. She hasn't been back to the Philippines in 44 years.
Wow.
So yeah. And I interviewed my daughter as well. She was a balikbayan with me on the last trip. And before that, she hadn't been back in almost 10 years.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
we have all these different experiences
Yeah.
when we return to the Philippines. It's different for everybody, and that's what's cool about Balikbayan Stories, I think. So
For sure, yeah, and I'm really really curious to see how they'll take coming back to the Philippines after having not been here because
Absolutely.
it's advanced so much since then. How do you think they're gonna react to it? Like, do you think they're gonna enjoy it? Do you think they'll be like it's too hot? Like, what do you think?
shock.
Shock.
First
Yeah.
of all, yeah. I mean, if you haven't been back here in over 20 years, let alone 40 years, you are in for a big shock. Like you said, it's like there's a lot more to the Philippines now.
Yeah.
Not just BGC, but everything. I mean, I haven't been to Boracay in over 30 years, almost 30 years. I think 30 years.
Wow.
And I'm sure from the pictures and the videos, I've had family members who went. It's amazing. It's shocking,
Mhm.
right? So, no, it shouldn't be shocking. It's like, of course, there's going to be development and progress
Right.
in 30 years or even less. So,
Yeah.
but it is very cool to see that. It is very cool to see all that.
For sure.
So,